I don't feel nearly as strongly about Philly and Brooklyn. And the more I look at the Philly deal, and especially like losing Curry in that thing too, who was one of the few people that gave them a little movement and a little unpredictability. And now I just feel like I think they're going to, as weird as this sounds, going to be pretty predictable offensively. And I'm not sure that deal is going to work.
That predictability is not necessarily a downside. I mean, if you're like, I don't think you have to be unpredictable if you have a guy who can, they're going to draw so many free throws. That's a part, I think, that people are they're going to be living at the free throw line. And that has a bunch of different knock-on effects. It reduces if you're playing a team that doesn't have a lot of depth, those players are going to be in foul trouble. They're a tough team to match up with because you need to play a big to guard Embiid. So you've got to alter your game plan a little bit. There's very few teams that are comfortable playing a big at all times. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. Like who knows how they'll actually fit together. There's this idea that Harden really needs a rim running or a 5-out type of scheme to be successful because that's how he's been successful in the past. But I'm sure he can adjust his game. The one thing I think will be interesting is how much they stagger those two, because that will be fun. I mean, being able to just have like an Embiid squad and then a Harden squad with space around him. They don't have a ton of shooting, unfortunately, after they gave up Curry. But I don't know. I think you have to make that deal. I think both teams benefited from that deal. I mean, I think where Philadelphia was a little bit disappointed was I think they thought there was a chance they could keep Simmons and then also like get him recoup whatever organizational failures they've had and relationship issues that they had with him and the team. I think they thought, well, if we can get this right and then sign Harden in the offseason somehow, if they can find a buyer for some contracts, that's what they wanted to do, because I think they thought they were going to get Harden in the offseason anyways. They have to shed some salary, but I'm sure they would be able to make it happen. And then now they have to actually give up Simmons or do two separate deals and get Harden for free. I think they just decided to do it now, get it over and done with. Who knows? It's tricky. I mean, they're going to be tough. They're going to be tough. I think they'll be the biggest variance. I mean, the spread between how good they'll be and how bad they'll be is massive because it's just super unpredictable. And I think you can make the same case for Brooklyn. I think both those teams are just going to be super interesting to watch down the stretch because nobody can really accurately say how it's going to play out. I think people can guess, but it's going to be really tough to call. I think Brooklyn's going to be good. I think Brooklyn adding Simmons defensively is huge. They can play it. They can play him as a primary. He doesn't need to take shots. They've got guys who can shoot. They've got Durant, who's as good as it gets offensively, literally. And so, it'll be interesting to watch. I mean, I think they have a chance. I mean, who knows? Also, they might, at some point down the road, Kyrie might be able to play home games again. I know the mayor's talked a little bit about being conflicted there. If that happens now, that's a completely different situation. The fact that he can't, not to get on, is absurd to me that a visiting player who's unvaccinated can play in Brooklyn, but a home player
it's been done the whole time. No, honestly,
I think they realize it. So maybe that'll change. Maybe it won't. But yeah, I think it'll be fun. Both those teams. To answer your question, who's a wild? I mean, in the East, Miami's pretty old, but they're going to be tough in the playoffs. Milwaukee seems to be the team to beat, but we'll find out. The East is going to be lit. I mean, that's going to be the playoffs that everyone's going to want to watch. I think. I mean, I'm going to.
It's so funny. Yeah. It flipped. I think with Philly and Brooklyn, the more I've been looking at it, when you talk about the variance, the two things for Philly for me are, is Embiid, am I getting him 100% or 95% the rest of the way, right? Because it's a lot to ask. He's missed a lot of games over the years and he'll disappear for 2 weeks and whatever. He's been pretty healthy this year and he seems like he's in good shape. But then you have the Harden piece where he's had issues with his legs the last 2 years. He's getting older. We know about his lifestyle, which has been reported about in multiple places. And he's hitting that age where, we've seen guys kind of go sideways. We saw it. Iverson's the worst case example of this, but Iverson went from 27 a game to he was out of the league in 2 years, And so I wonder about the durability of those two guys, which is weird to worry about Harden's durability when he played like every game for 10 years. But the durability of those guys going through 4 playoff rounds. And
Iverson had some off the court stuff that probably
I know he did.
Yeah,
I'm aware, but I'm not sure Harden doesn't.
Well, I mean, the Iverson stuff was, I think, a lot different than Harden just likes to go out. I don't think Harden's like,
yeah,
it's not, certainly not.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Brooklyn piece, it's just people are now penciling Ben Simmons into being the Ben Simmons that we saw before he melted down in the playoffs. And I would just like to see it. I'd like to see it for a few weeks. I would like to see him shoot free throws in a 1-point game and a minute left on the road. I would like to see how he handles, booing in different places.
I think people overreact, and I don't think he did himself any favors. People definitely overreacted to that playoff series, and just assume that that's who he is. Like that. I don't know. Like, yes, he passed that shot at the last whatever, and could have went up, got fouled, shot free throws, or could have tried to make the layup, and he passed out of it. And that was obviously bad, detrimental to his team. But it just kind of shows you the kind of world we live in, where every little move gets micromanaged and talks about for years. Like that happened last year's playoffs. People forget that. I don't know. I mean, he was a decent. He hasn't been this his whole career. He was an okay free throw shooter earlier on in his career. It's not like free throw shooting is this magical thing that's so difficult to do. Now, do I think he'll ever be a 3-point shooter? Probably not. But he hasn't done himself any favors by the way he's refused to kind of acknowledge the weaknesses in his game and improve upon them. But I think people are giving him too difficult a time here to think that he's just, his mental state is. And now, mind you, he has claimed that he's part of the reason why he can't play is because of his mental state. So that's fair that people are saying that. But I don't think he's like just a perennial choker. I don't think he's a guy who's just going to choke for the rest of his life or anything like that. I mean, people get better, they improve. It'll be interesting to see. He's still very young. It's a different situation, different environment. It can't be fun to have your coach talk about you the way that happened right immediately after a loss. That couldn't have been fun. And
he barely said anything.
How about just, I mean, I don't know. It's hard because you lose these games and then you're forced to go and talk about how you lost in front of everybody. And I get that. But if someone says, do you think you can win a championship, or do you think he's a player you can build around, or whatever the question was, like, can you win a championship with Ben Simmons? It's like answering, like, I don't know right now. Like, I mean, it just seems like it was just such a passive aggressive, and maybe he didn't mean to be in that way. It just seemed like such a passive aggressive dig at a player who just had like probably the lowest point of his career. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's more to it. Maybe the guy maybe he was a jerk all year and there's a reason for it, but it definitely spun the situation in such a way where it became untenable. So I'm glad both teams were able to move on and kind of, he's in a different spot now. He's got to play with completely different vibe, different team. It'll be interesting to watch.
I don't know if it was worth sacrificing $20 million because your coach kind of hurt your feelings.
Well, maybe not. Maybe he doesn't care about money. I mean, maybe he thinks he's going to get the money back.
If I'm 25 years old and I'm still trying to get better, I don't know how it helps me not to play basketball. Nobody will ever convince me otherwise. That's a good idea.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely agreeing with you there.
Also, it wasn't just that he passed up the dunk. It was the fact that
he didn't want to get from the free throw line. He didn't want to shoot.
He didn't want to get fouled. I watched this happen with Antoine Walker with the Celtics, where once that gets in your head and it starts changing how you play, that's a real thing. That's not a funk. Like, he didn't want to get fouled.
Who else struggled at the free throw line and wasn't super crazy about shooting free throws in a playoff series? Was shooting 50%? Giannis. People forget they're counting to 10. And then in the final game he went like 19 to 25 or something, or 21, some ridiculous number. So I'm not comparing Ben Simmons' work ethic to Giannis. Obviously, Giannis is a different breed. He's going to work. He's going to get better. He's also probably mentally tougher. He grew up in a pretty difficult situation.
Probably.
In terms of, yeah. But I don't know. I just think it's a little bit early to write a guy off who has that talent and who is in a new situation that by all accounts should be positive. I mean, it's going to be kind of a messed up situation though too. You got Kyrie, who's a different cat for sure. And then you've got Durant, who's it has a chance to go really bad. I'm not going to lie, but it's going to be fun to watch. That's for sure.
The red flag to me, other than the fact that he just decided not to play basketball for 8 months, is I just get nervous when guys don't have that if you're one of the best 15, 20 players in the league, you're making big money, and you don't have that maniacal urge to just keep getting better.
Yeah.
Right. I think that is over and over again. If you just look at anything about why is somebody great versus why didn't they get there, it's the work ethic piece. And it's like you mentioned Giannis. Giannis is fearless. Like he was never afraid of a moment. He didn't care that he would miss 2 free throws in a row in a finals game, and then he would make the next 2. Like he never seemed like he was scared of the moment. And he really did work to keep improving and adding things to his game. And I just didn't see it from Simmons. I didn't see him really adding anything. And I was one of his bigger fans because I think I really valued what he did defensively, and I valued his transition stuff. And I thought he was one of the best 20 players in the league. I thought Houston should have traded for him in the Harden trade versus what they got from Brooklyn. But after last playoffs, like he really has to prove it to me. It just can't be like, I'm on a new team. I have a new number.
Yeah, everything you said is very fair. I mean, look, he isn't diligent. It doesn't seem like he's added anything or much to his game since he's got
nothing. Yeah. Are you better at shooting threes? Are you better at shooting free throws? Do you have a better low post game? What are you better at than you were in 2019?
His low post game is pretty good, I think. He's definitely good in space. He didn't come into the league an awful free throw shooter. He just didn't want to shoot threes, and then the free throws started coming later on. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. Who knows?
Just to put a bow on Brooklyn. So let's say Simmons is at least as good as he was in the 2019 playoffs when they lost to Kawhi. Let's say Kyrie is able to play every playoff game and that he can somehow stay on the floor. Let's say Durant's legs are okay and that he can get back to 95% of where he was. Let's say Curry fits in. Do you still like this team to win 4 straight playoff rounds? What else needs to happen?
I don't know. I mean,
Patty Mills, I guess, would be the 5th. So Mills, Curry, Kyrie, Durant, Simmons.
They don't have a lot of defense. Let's just be clear. They don't play a particularly analytically friendly game of basketball. So they're leaving a lot of points on the table there. You could argue, although they do have guys who are very good at taking the shots that they're taking. So it might be it's moot. But LaMarcus Aldridge, 18 feet away from the basket, banging away long twos. He's been pretty good at it. KD obviously is the best in the world at that shot. So that's fine. But they don't take a ton of threes. Maybe Curry changes that. I don't know, man. Like people forget they were like an inch away from getting to the finals last year. Yeah. Or getting to the next round past Milwaukee. I mean, I'm sure they would have handled.
But we think the East is way better this year. I mean, whoever they play in round 1 is going to be considerably better than that Celtics team they played last year.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the East is very tough. I mean, do I know? I mean, I think that they're overrated for sure in terms of, I thought they've been overrated all year, even prior to like the vaccine mandate stuff for that halved Kyrie's production. But yeah, I don't see it, but they also have guys who are, it'll be interesting to see because the defense will change a lot with Simmons. Their full court transition game will change a lot. It'll be, I think the argument that Harden, I don't think Harden, Irving, and when all 3 are available, Harden, Irving, and Durant really fit well together anyways. It was kind of like a your turn, my turn type thing. Yeah. And none of them really defend very well with the exception of Durant, I guess, is a good defender. So I think they'll be better with Simmons than they were with Harden. I'll say that just because of fit. I don't think Simmons is a better player. I just think he's a better fit.